Hello everyone, it's been a hot minute since I've done a chapter review, but with so much happening in this chapter, specifically the potential return of Ryosuke, I felt like there was so much I wanted to discuss. So despite being in the middle of working on another video, I wanted to quickly come on here to break down my thoughts, feelings, and analyze this chapter, and if I actually think Kiyora will be returning. Since I actually asked you guys in a community post, and over 50% of you guys voted that Kiyora for sure is coming back. So let's get into it. But before that, please like, comment, and subscribe, plus push the post notification button so you don't miss any of my future videos. As per usual, we will start this chapter review with a quick summary of the chapter. So we start off the chapter with seeing the Blue Lock players getting in some last minute training before the U20 World Cup starts. Isagi scores and starts giving feedback to Hiyori on how he's playing, with Karasu stepping in, which creates some tension between him and Isagi. But Aiku steps in before a real argument can start between them. We then see Barasu come into the facility, and Ego asks him why he's here. Barasu says that he's here to greet the Blue Lock players and finally let them know what his deal was with Ego in order to create some real motivation on the team, with Barasu revealing that the member of players allowed to play for the official U20 team isn't 23, but in fact 26. With one of the 3 spots already being taken by itoshi, and it's going to be decided how the other 2 players will be picked by him as well. He then explains he created his own version of Blue Lock, gathering 300 players that will battle it out for the final 2 spots. Isagi begins to see the faces of the players and instantly recognizes Kiyora, remembering how he played a role in his elimination from Blue Lock. We then see Barasu brag about how this is going to be a huge media spectacle, with Isagi questioning Ego what this would mean for Blue Lock. Ego says it doesn't matter, since whoever comes back, he isn't going to use them, and admits that, well, if they don't win though, he will be removed as the director of Blue Lock. We then see Nagi walk up to the stadium with only 2 hours left before the World Cup starts. So like I said earlier, we get quite a lot in this chapter, which makes sense since they are placing the last things that they can before the match officially starts. And before we discuss the main topic of this video, which is Kiyora, I actually did want to go over a couple of interesting things I also got from this chapter, which I would like to discuss first. First, the mini fight between Karasu and Isagi. From the sounds of it, it seems the other players might be a bit annoyed with Isagi, with him behaving in a superior way, with him now being the number 1 player in Blue Lock next to Ren, which this could actually be an interesting storyline to explore in the World Cup arc, since usually the arc starts with Isagi having to fight his way to the top to get respect from his fellow players and them looking down at him. But now that dynamic could be switched, with Isagi feeling like he is the main center of the team, since Ren even tells Isagi not to get too cocky and act like everything's gonna go his way. Not saying that's what exactly is going on with Isagi, since it was a very brief moment in the chapter, but with how quick Karasu was to get annoyed with him, it does seem there is some tension between him and the other players, and I think that could be an interesting dynamic to see in the World Cup, how Isagi's off-field behavior affects how his teammates play with him, since typically while Isagi is of course very wild on the field, he usually gets along with most of the fellow Blue Lock players outside of a match. So seeing the power possibly going to Isagi's head would be a different and new thing for his character to go through than the typical starting at the bottom and having to work his way up again. Next, we have the reveal that if the Blue Lock players lose in the U20 World Cup, then Ego will be removed from the Blue Lock project, which makes the stakes even higher now, since there are a lot of people who believe that Japan isn't going to win this World Cup. But not only could we be dealing with a loss, we could also be losing a major character that has been around since the beginning. I definitely do want to talk more about why exactly I think this is happening to Ego in a future video. But with most people talking about Kiyora, I feel like we should also acknowledge how crazy this reveal is. Since I know worst case scenario, if he does end up leaving Blue Lock, it wouldn't be permanent, but it would mean even temporarily, someone else would come in and take over and handle the U20 Japan team, which would completely change the dynamic of the story, since Ego's actions is what has driven each arc. But I feel like I'll save more of my thoughts on this for a future video, since I want to finally get into the main topic, which is the potential return of Ryosuke. So many people think that with the cameo of Kiyora in this latest chapter, that after many years, he's finally going to be making his return to the story. And as annoyed as people might have been with all the requests over the years for Kiyora to return, it does make sense, especially with the introduction of the Busan 3. Since the main purpose of the Busan 3 is to challenge the philosophy of Blue Lock, and there wouldn't be anyone else who would want to do that more than Kiyora, especially with after how he was treated in Blue Lock. Getting eliminated first in his group without getting the chance to play a real game. Plus, remember that Kiyora was the first person to really challenge Ego's philosophy as well, so he would be the perfect candidate. But even with all the hype and many people convinced that he's guaranteed coming back, like I said in my original spoilers post, I do just think that this is a red herring. I think the author is aware that many people felt like Kiyora's character never got a true chance and wanted him to come back, and while this is a nod to those people, I don't see this as a true declaration that Kiyora is coming back to the Blue Lock story, or at the very least, he's coming back to the Blue Lock story to join the U20 Japan team. But why? What is the reason for believing that Kiyora is not coming back? Well, first and foremost, it's what Kiyora is supposed to represent. Kiyora was seen as Japan's upcoming jewel in football, representing everything that current Japan football was. It was clean, pure sportsmanship, and first and foremost about the team. Football wasn't about yourself or your ego, but about being a team player where you uplift each other and don't try to take the spotlight for yourself. Since even when Kiyora was asked about playing for the U20 Japan team, when his character gets introduced in the first chapter, he says his current sights are on succeeding with his current team, showing how selfless he is and how much he represents the current values and beliefs of Japan as a society. And that's even the first main reason why Kiyora is against Blue Lock, since even when given the opportunity by Ego to be the best striker in the world, he prioritizes the fact that he won't abandon his team that needs him for nationals. So Kiyora is shown as not only the opposite of the ideology to Blue Lock, but also Izaki, even more so than Rin has ever been, since Izaki and Kiyora approach and view football very different. Izaki views Ego, the feeling, not the person, as a good thing, something to motivate and drive him to be the best, while Kiyora sees Ego, both the feeling and person honestly, as a negative thing that doesn't align with Japan's core values as a nation. And essentially, Kiyora represents the old generation of football and holding on to tradition, while Izaki represents the new generation of football and the rejection of tradition, which is how I always viewed Kiyora's elimination. Kiyora wasn't ever supposed to be a real character, but showing that Izaki is letting go of what he thought football had to be and completely accepting that he has an ego and is willing to do anything he has to get to the top. And Kiyora was used as an example of that, since he had been nothing but nice to Izaki since we met his character, and the author could have easily made it so that Kiyora's niceness was a mask and he was actually a jerk, so we as an audience would have felt less bad when Kiyora got eliminated. but I feel like the author purposely kept him nice because he wanted to set the tone for this manga and show just how brutal Blue Lock can be, and also how brutal the real world can be, and that sometimes you just don't get second chances. Like, obviously we do have characters that do come back and get second chances, like with Kunigami and Nagi, but I think Kiyora was supposed to be the example that sometimes life is unfair and sometimes people just do get dealt a bad hand. So I feel like Kiyora coming back would defeat the first main message and point that Blue Lock made with his elimination. Kiyora is the past, and that's where he's supposed to be left. The Blue Lock ghost of old Japan football that never got to be. Anyways, there's so much more I could say, but I really did just want to make a quick video getting my thoughts out there. And that being said, I don't hate the idea of Kiyora coming back. There's for sure a lot of interesting stuff that can be done with his character and a storyline for him. But if he does come back, like I said, I would hate the fact that it ruins the first message that Blue Lock gave us, but we shall see by next week if I am right or wrong. So please let me know in the comments, do you want Kiyora to come back? Why or why not? Anyways, that is it for now, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye!